As governments prepare to begin COP26 negotiations at the end of the month, they have been told that an immediate increase in energy and land use policy is required to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius objective in sight. According to an analysis by the Principles for Responsible Investment (PRI), this accelerated action under its required policy scenario (RPS) would mean: 1. Deforestation must be stopped globally, ideally by 2025. If this does not happen, the energy sector will have to absorb even more reductions, maybe through bioenergy and carbon capture and storage. 2. By 2035, most major economies, including China, will have to completely phase out coal. 3. By 2040, nearly all markets will have phased out new fossil automobiles. 4. By 2045, the world will have switched to 100% renewable energy. However, the research says that a set of measures known as the forecast policy scenario, which projects a rapid acceleration of climate policy, is probable by 2025 Paris record, which may result in temperature being contained to below 2 degrees Celsius, is considerably more likely than the required policy scenario. According to the PRI, under this scenario, the use of fossil fuels would decline by 60% by 2050, with coal consumption decreasing by 75% and oil demand plummeting after the mid-2020s. The research serves as a sobering wake-up call to policymakers ahead of the crucial COP26 negotiations in Glasgow. The PRI's Inevitable Policy Response study examined 21 major economies and polled more than 200 experts on national climate policy to create its forecast policy scenario. Despite reducing carbon dioxide emissions by 80% by 2050 under the forecast policy scenario, the Earth only has 1 in 2 probability of staying below 1.8 degrees Celsius according to the PRI. Wind and solar power will account for more than 30% of energy generation by 2030, rising to more than 60% by 2050, while seismic changes in transportation would see the manufacturing of fossil-fueled cars peak in 2025. The truck industry will shift more slowly but will nonetheless be nearly carbon-free by 2050, the PRI said. However, owing to greater costs, the reduction in emission in industry would be slower than in electricity and transportation, with emissions falling by about 45% by 2050. Also, by 2050, forest crops and nature-based solutions will have replaced nearly 400 million hectares of pasture and rangelands worldwide, an area almost twice the size of Mexico. According to the PRI, projects aimed at reducing negative emissions and preventing deforestation would be valued at $167 billion per year by 2050, with China having the greatest deployment of nature-based solutions. Following the UN's global stocktake in 2023, when the UN assesses the Paris Agreement's implementation thus far, and as nations prepare to submit their third round of climate commitments in 2025, the world will be at a policy tipping point between 2023 and 2025. Investors and companies will put increased pressure on governments at the same time. According to the PRI, 124 nations, representing 70% of global GDP, have made net zero pledges so far, with 48% demonstrating greater ambition than in 2019. Governments throughout the world would need to take rapid policy action which actively intervenes in markets to impose performance requirements, including harsh prohibitions, to achieve a major shift in the energy system. The PRI is also collaborating with BlackRock and BNP Paribas Asset Management to identify which data components are critical for asset owners and managers to use in business and sector valuation models.